Eckankar. Sensual, emotional, memory, intellectual, intuitive, spiritual. What is Ek but beyond? Okay, where was I? Alquran. Now, I know that some of what I have jumped in and added was, I ended up talking about it. But I've spent a lot of years looking into this group. I've spent a lot of years looking into other groups, and I've turned, 500 pages of material into as little as 40 pages for these papers, and I feel like adding more, so I'll get back to the point. Al-Quran, Surah 85, Ayat 22, can be used to say that Al-Quran was part of the actual Akashic, or original scriptural substance, records. As other scriptures came down from the originals, such was the same for this, other revealed scriptures. Such was the same for this book, with prophecies that may be beneficial to all. It is possible that prophetic dreams involve a connection to God's foreknowledge that benefit the individual. Must we credit insight we get as that of a spiritual leader going on and finding it and placing it where we can benefit from it? Well, certainly that's how the spiritual leaders have, in a way, benefited us, is they've gone in and said, and taught in a way that it leaves something for humanity, but putting it and hiding it in psychic and spiritual places, well, I'll let you answer that for yourself. I would think most, with even material knowledge of dreams, would agree dreams help us out with our waking life, and that is primary. Most spiritually minded people would say that dreams are spiritually important and may lead to more holy experiences. I think that is what they mean by soul travel. Al-Quran, Surah 25, 847, mentions sleep as a time of repose, and by implication, healing. Most atheists would agree with Eckankar about healing being a factor of sleep. Psychologists and psychiatrists would tell you that the other two factors here are projections upon consciousness. Is Temples of a Golden Wisdom, where all 12 volumes of the Shariat Kisugmad The Way of the One We Seek, has 2 volumes written by Paul Twitchell, the founder of Eckankar, resides where all the 12 volumes of the Shariat Kisugmad reside, and private audience with the living Eckmaster, in the middle of the chart there is what they claim the current one is. Realities beyond what we allow to be done to our consciousness. I see enough abrogation among Eckankar members and literature to know that the assurance to dwell in physical and spiritual worlds may not be gained over all when all 5 are present. Luke 11:34 is brought up as an analogy, referring to the spiritual eye of Tisra, Till, in Eckankar lingo. Even if we leave even if we leave this, verses 28 through 33 and 35 through 36, this rings true. Some may not have gotten it by that alone, because evil was how they usually spoke of physical maladies. I think many who read this would disagree that the spiritual sight is from a spot between and above the eyebrows. That is our perception of vision, and the spirit soul is probably not so physical as to do more than operate the pineal and pituitary. Does the psychedelic experiences that the Eckists and other pseudo-metaphysicians aspire to reside in the centers of the physical body alone? We should be a light that shares of what truth we learned, though. I would certainly think that most who only read this discourse of mine will find that awakening to the presence of God and experiencing strange light and sound needs no presence of a living master for it to work. Many will not have the gap in connecting dreams and waking life all on their own. Without organized religion, organized spirituality, I will interpret 3 dreams by a higher initiate on page 109 of the Ek Dream 1 Discourses by Harold Klemp. The dream about a gas pump pulling gas out of his gas tank might have really been about him losing more than he was gaining from Eckankar. The dream about sailing through fog, not knowing where to anchor, may have meant he had trouble finding spiritual truth among the Eckankar teachings, and the light he saw was other spiritual ways. Maybe it was religion versus spirituality. The third and final dream that night was about yelling at one ticket agent at an airport for another one taking a shift change right before serving him. He might have been complaining about something that was being done in his outer life too. Maybe all this was a sign that his prayer to Harold Klemp to explain the change in his life was misguided. Carol Pope Runyon, of the Church of Hermetic Sciences, spoke in his Dark Mirror of Magic video how his operations always invigorated him. Page 110 of the Ek Dream 1 Discourses speaks of how many Eckists like their unusual experiences and then feel worse afterwards. Some of this sounds like guilt. What do they have to feel guilty for if Eckankar is right in what they teach? Overdoing things physically may cause problems, and spirituality should not ignore the needs of the body. Bibliomancy is said in Eckankar to increase spiritual stamina. Is it really an exercise of mental variety? In Islam, we recite different passages of Al-Quran and other things to give variety to our salat, our contact prayer. There is not much to be said inside and outside religious communities about what this does for the mind, other than it being better than not doing anything like that. Harold Klemp is right about moderation. We should not try to build up in intensity all at once. It's like I certainly wouldn't invite somebody over to lock them in the shed for 3 hours and 33 minutes to do a 333 to lead with them, or outside leading a 333 ritual. If I was, if they weren't ready for that, maybe they should do shorter practices before they tackle anything like that, few minute stuff. And satisfaction, piety, and consciousness are said to be the keys to happiness. Traditionally, Eckankar focuses on dream study and contemplation as the way to happiness and love. Her on page 111 of the Ek Dream 1 Discourses by Harold Klemp. The story here is about someone who awoke to see little value in indulgence with his possessions, decided to do a contemplation instead, thinking he heard Harold Klemp, or Wazi's voice, telling him to light a candle, to know what it is like to be on the soul plane, touches on a truth that we are living in a metaphysical existence, but fail to make the small shift to pay attention to that fact. The hearing it in a familiar voice is based on a memory of what he thought the voice would sound like and what it would say. It often seems like every warm or good feeling or thought is deemed to be love in Eckankar. What do you think the secret word was that came with that feeling? What do you think the secret word that came with that feeling was, and what it really meant? It is not said, but maybe it has something to do with the radiating outwards from the heart part. Paul Twitchell, Stranger by the River, Random Passage, Spiritual Exercise. It's a 1970 book. I've heard that Eckankar has, after Darwin Gross, edited the book. I think Stranger by the River, along with Tiger's Fang, and what was the other one, were all written before Eckankar, but they were edited to become Eckankar books. But anyways, The Easy Way Discourses by Harold Klemp, Lesson 6, Your Initiations in Eck, pages 59 and 60, mentions contemplating on chapter 23 of that book from a quarter to half an hour. After reading pages 124 through 128 are The Trembling of a Star, Can We Live in a World Without Love, are Lesson 8 of the Easy Way Discourses by Harold Klemp, page 79 and 80, calls one to take paragraph 9 of 15 of The Loving Heart from Stranger by the River into contemplation for a third of an hour, are the whole of chapter 15, pages 78 through 81. This time it was to choose a short passage at random each night, asking the Dream Master to let you understand the underlying spiritual meaning. If one means God, sure. If one means as they do, no. I do not have grandfather issues that would lead me to pray to someone 4 decades older than me. People are told to keep a record and consider it spiritually important. Now, this Stranger by the River random passage thing actually becomes the entirety of the letters of light and sound. So there's a different passage that you're supposed to meditate with, and that's probably why they, every single day, reading a chapter. I think so. Year 4 and maybe 5, I think, are, they're meditating, they're contemplating with those chapters. After dawn prayer on June 11th, 2014 was when I started with this. I first flipped around, reading small bits at random. Pages 130 to 134 are the 24th chapter, was the chapter I read before my first sleep session with this month's spiritual exercise of Eck. Yes, it is redundant. If the word Eck means spiritual in some context, I may have chose the chapter No Greater Love, because 24 was my age when I met the Princess of Cups. For the second period of sleep after dawn, I chose pages 118 through 123 are the 22nd chapter. It is called Freedom. I think this would be my selection for the rest of the month. Thus far my sleep has been rather blank, and the colors coming in and out of it have been rather monochromatic. In the third solar hour of the 4th day of the 9th month, in the year 1435 of Hitra. Oh, Hitra? Is it Hitra? I think it's Hitra. I had the following experience between 9:17 and 10:42 a.m. on Wednesday, June 2nd, 2014. I saw a vault of pink stars with an expanse of purple stars. I threw 6 spheres into the air. Through the air. I threw 6 spheres through the air. Well, hopefully I didn't throw like that. These had the seals of the Goetia for the period of Taurus. For the period of Taurus upon them. They were numbers 15 through 20 in sequence. The first 2, the 4th, and the 5th were neon green. The 3rd was a combination of hot pink and neon orange. The 6th was neon yellow, and neon blue enveloped me, and it was like I was somewhere else. I saw a meadow, full of orange flowers and blue flowers. There were 2 rabbits fighting with each other. Then it seemed like they were flirting with each other, but something seemed lacking in the female rabbit. They reconciled and became as one in the silvery moon. That moon was watched by an armored hunter of gold, an armored hunter of old. He was gathering rocks and herbs. Soon he would have to seek out a mate, or even travel far to connect with one. A strange sight met him in the wilderness. A stout man riding an ox-black chariot rode across the sky with a she-goat, a male kid and a female kid in his luggage area. Little goat. This cloud-riding chariot was pulled by 3 strangely colored horses. One was purple, one was orange, the other was green. A white horse circled around them on the right side, and a black horse did the same on the left side. The black and white horses stuck to their sides. The charioteer wore a cap like a snake, wrapped 3.5 times around his head. His aura was yellow as he spoke of the creation of the earth and other worldly matters. I remember not what he said. I awoke much more rested than my sleep hours in the past day would typically give me. This seems to be both a progression of the Decant of Taurus and the Goetia seals against Elagos, Zepar, Batis, Bathan, Salios, and Person. I think I should read it in terms of Stranger by the River by Paul Twitchell, Chapter 22, Freedom. The first sphere is a symbol of opposition to the evils of war, amongst other things. The second sphere is a symbol against the evils of barrenness and courtship, among other things. The third sphere is a sign opposed to the evils of reconciling friends, among other things. The fourth sphere is a talisman for use against the evils of herbs and stones. The fifth is a sign against the evils of heterosexual love, amongst other things. The sixth sphere is a sign against the evils of earthly answers, among other things. Now, obviously, the evils of any of these things, there's more than evil amongst these things, but, The Decantas of Taurus are Lepus, or the hare, Orion, or the hunter, Auriga, or the charioteer. The planetary attributes of Lepus, as Mercury and Jupiter, can be seen in the orange and blue flowers. The planetary attributes of Orion, as Moon and Mars, can be seen in the hunter and the silvery moon. The planetary attributes of Auriga, as Saturn and Sun, can be seen in the stout man's ox chariot and his bright yellow aura. His crown was the energy of the 7 chakras, or the 10, 11 Sephiroth. further understand the vision, we can look towards the chapter. The purple horse was a symbol of love. The orange horse was a symbol of freedom. The green horse was a symbol of humility and truth. The white horse was of purity. The black horse was of gratitude. The she-goat was a symbol of a free and independent soul, which provides for the same of mind and body. The mind and body were seen as the male and female kids. The couple must go beyond their personal tastes to be people of God. We learn this in the mineral, plant, animal, and human stages of life. From the 19th of the 8th month of 1435. You think that you want to touch her to accomplish something? All you are is bound to attachment. Do you want to touch her in more than her body? Seek love, freedom, and humility to rise above attachment. Have you ever felt with soul beyond the symbolic affections of the body? Freedom and independence she seeks to bring out in you with her attachment. God has his way, so embrace love, truth, and freedom. Let her bring out love and purity in you with her adjustments. Perfect body, mind, and soul beyond yourself, and actively join God's kingdom. Don't look to the lower things, or return to the past to deserve new chastisement. And let's start into the workbook activities. The ECK Dream 1 Discourses by Harold Klemp gives page 112 and 113. The ECK Dream 1 Discourses by Harold Klemp, page 112 and 113, tries to get people to wait for a gift from the leader of Eckankar, giving him credit for an insight, dream, or experience. The real goal of Eckankar is a scary one, if you think of it. The purpose of Eckankar is to get its members to credit the organization and its Mahanta for anything of value in their life. It is one thing to say God is in charge of fate, but to place that on a human and call them your dream master is another thing. I am fine trusting in God, and won't falsely attribute what I figure out to a guru. I won't draw such false associations of being gifted either. My technique to better understand what I read this month's exercise is the same as the past 2 months like it. Poetry and prose works for me. What works for you? So that's what that piece was, is reworking of that chapter. The second workbook, the 19th of the 8th month of 1435. The second workbook activity calls to remember when one has stumbled, what was done? What could have been done? How was it a blessing? I have felt good doing deeds. I have fell doing good deeds, and because of poor coordination at other times. None of the times left me anything but going on, either by continued effort that got me respect, or I was considered brave for doing something right, despite the cost. Either way, I was blessed, and at least the material world by it. I might have been able to do better, but that time has passed, and I have to turn to the future. Page 115's third workbook activity is to listen to the 6th track of excerpts for the ECK Dream 1 Discourses, number 6, The Eternal Dreamer, Part 1. From The Eternal Dreamer, Parts 1 and 2, 1988, ECK Creative Arts Festival, and Chapter 11 of The Eternal Dreamer, Mahanta Transcripts, Book 7. My personal dream worlds are more of my own personal projections, and the occasional truly spiritual realm or elements. I try to put it all in a religious, spiritual context through intentions and remembrance, but don't think that makes it all visits to the higher worlds of God. I do not think metaphysics is such an onion-layered existence of just go up and down. Eckankar and some of the Gnostic groups have taken this speaking of heavens too literally. Paradise and hell realms are not so much as you want them to be and can imagine them. Dream worlds are largely other views of what you processed in your waking life. What makes yours different? Deck Dream 1 Discourses by Harold Klemp, page 116, has workbook activity 2, 5, 4. I've wondered where my early and other dream experiences occurred. I wonder about what parts of the mind and body are involved in visions too. I would tell a child about this, and I would also mention the holy or metaphysical realms as the place of the rarer dreams and visions. Harold Klemp would have you try to use a technique like active imagination to recall forgotten dreams from the causal mind and replay it. You know, the green line on the Eckankar chart. Notice what I ask on the left side of the chart. The difference is that it is used as more of a making it up from scratch in the context of prayer to whom the Eckists call the living Eckmaster. See that further in the top center. I wouldn't mind praying to God to remember things, though. Workbook Activity 5 of Lesson 5 on page 117 through 118 is to review the quote from Autobiography of a Modern Prophet by Harold Klemp to identify what is familiar. I've seen blue-gray areas and other colored areas in dreams and visions. I know enough about the psychedelics of the mind to realize starry, pastoral, winds, tunnels, and bright landscapes do not mean I am in different places. I'm in different planes than the physical plane. The next workbook activity is on the next page, and I can recognize knowledge of my spiritual past, spiritually based healing, and prophecy in dreams without praying to a creation to help me figure it out. What is your dream? What is your understanding? Page 120 as workbook activity 7. I don't like to use the term Wazi to refer to Harold Klemp. What does that mean? Secret doctrine? I bet. Anyways, either we got to that or we'll get to that elsewhere. Out of the 5 ways listed, the projections upon the consciousness of golden wisdom temples full of Eckmasters, there's supposed to have been 970 mythological ones and 3 historical living Eckmasters that were called Mahanta during life in the physical body, teaching Eckankar books, and the projections of private discussions with the leader of Eckankar are the only 2 unique things of the 5 ways Eck's study of dreams gives an advantage in life. You know, only the personalities is what makes the cult unique. Oh, people aren't going to like the word cult. I don't use the word as hate speech. It's a peculiar, unique minority religion. That's it. And it's always going to be a minority religion. Do those ways give an advantage? I could see how imaginary journeys into Eck temples could be a benefit without idolatry. But the second I list is not one I'd like to explore. Would you pick out one of these 2, or looking at dreams as having insight to regular life, or how dream work leads to more purely spiritual realities, or the healing provided by God in sound and light? Workbook activity Year 2, Month 2, Number 8 is on page 121 It implies that this month's spiritual exercise can be used to understand other discourses and books. It provides another place to put the page number of the reading or other context, its meaning, and dreams. I would highly recommend sourcing, understanding, or fiqh, as it is called. Oh, not a fiqh, yeah, fiqh. Yeah, anyways. FIQH. I'm not sure if it's sounding right. I'm kind of dry today. As it is called in Arabic whenever possible. Context of unusual experience. Context of unusual experiences is not only important to those who would want to recreate yourselves, who would want to recreate themselves and its circumstance, but it's not only important to those who would want to recreate yours and its circumstance, but may form an important basis for explanations. I started with pages 130 to 134, or the 24th chapter of Stranger by the River, as part of my bedtime practice after my experience between 9:17 and 10:42 on the 2nd of July, until I went on retreat on the 17th of July 2014, when Ramadan was over and we were observing Eid al-Fitr, holiday of ending the fast, the first 3 nights and days of the 10th month of Al-Hijrah. Some people only count the first, but there is tradition about 3 days, so I picked up this practice again. No Greater Love is the title of the chapter I read before sleeping to my experience between 7:31 and 10:50 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Friday the 1st of August 2014, are the 2nd through 4th solar hours of the 10th month of 1435.